Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Passed. Second thing we got to do, there's a staff comments, update on our policy for remote meetings. Ed Bear is here with questions, concerns. I'm proposing that we adopt the, as revised by Steve, and Ed, you've seen the revision.
Yes, we have.
And that offend you, taking away my exclusive authority?
Seemed like a reasonable thing to do under the circumstances.
All right, well, I'm going to make a motion that we adopt as revised. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Steve, do you want to comment on this?
What was the revision? Just come to us tonight?
The original policy gave me, the chairman, exclusive rights to reject, and he changed it that we do unanimous or whatever.
If there was any question or any
He took
contest.
away my oomph.
Short of having a recall of the chairman.
So do you agree?
So what's that again now?
Here are the changes.
Ed will explain it.
So originally, it says as struck through, and then instead, that was proposed.
It's just basically saying who can approve it, right?
This was changed.
Correct.
Mr. Salisbury was the instigator.
I would hope the council would take my sage advice and adopt a similar policy.
Unbridled power, take it away. You okay with that? All right, I suggest,
Anything unless in Joe Power is gonna be.
so we all agree that this as, taking away my unbridled power is not a good thing, but, all right. I make a motion that we adopt as written. Do I have a second?
I seconded.
And all in favor? We're unanimous, and then all opposed. Third item for business, Kelly Bellis, step right up. Listen, I've read your application, and I'm gonna tell you point blank, if there was ever a property that qualifies for a variance, it's yours. Is there any opposition to this from neighbors, family, friends, city, or anybody else? Has everyone seen what he's proposing?
Yes.
He needs to move his basement so he can put it and get his oil tank out. And I'm gonna make a motion that we adopt his proposal as is, that he meets all criteria for a variance, including but not limited to the 4 or 5 listed, and that we grant this. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Anybody, all in favor? All opposed? Kelly, thank you. I read this and I gotta tell you, I'm going, how's he gonna get it out if we don't get this, right? Thank you for coming.
One question.
Sure.
Is there an affidavit or something I need to record at the registry of deeds?
Actually,
Yes.
You'll
Lori will
send that.
prepare what
Okay.
you need, it'll be filed, the minutes will reflect that we found all actually, I gotta make a motion that I'm gonna make a motion that we find that his application meets all criteria for a variance. Do I have a second?
You said that.
Let's do it again. Because I did it so quick. Do I have,
Second.
and all in favor? It meets all criteria. Perfect.
Thank
You're
you.
out of here.
Thank you very much.
There won't be any mistake now, even though I probably did it twice. Thank you. All right, finally, Bruce, you there? We can't hear you, bud. Can you turn your thing on?
All right, it's unmuted, thank you.
Okay, this is a discovery dispute, good old fashioned, and the only issue we're gonna discuss tonight is discovery, what the city can get or not get. And then, once we decide that, if we determine, then you can do what you wanna do. I have City of Ellsworth's, opinion dated October 18th, 2020 from Ed Bear saying that we're entitled to it. I have Bruce, say your last name, Bruce.
It's Stavitsky.
I always butcher it, but I got a 9/7/21 memo outlining your argument on behalf of Walmart. And then I have the city's 8/13/21 submissions with all this stuff that says, and I'm ready to make a decision on this. I don't, does anyone need argument? Is
And,
every- If you want to argue, Bruce, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to add, we also submitted something dated October 15th of '21 in response to what was submitted by the city attorney.
October 15th. Do I have that? Does anyone have a copy of that?
October 18th?
We sent that to Lori Roberts and to.
I got the
Larry
9/7.
Gardner.
I've got the 10/18 from, and then I got a 8/13 from, but I never got your other submission, Bruce. Did anyone get it?
It was emailed to Lori Roberts and sent via FedEx to her, and emailed to Larry Gardner.
Did we have that?
I don't have it with me.
You got it.
We could go through the emails upstairs and print it out.
Well, does anybody else get it? Does anyone see it? I printed my emails fairly
What
regular.
date was that, Bruce, that you emailed it to me?
It was sent October 15th.
We should have a computer set up.
Can we take a 5-minute break, and can you get copies for everybody?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'll go up with you.
10:15?
Bruce, we'll get it. It's part of the record. We just didn't get it, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, we're going back line.
Back
Yeah.
up.
Yeah,
They were, very.
yeah, they're right there in front of you.
What's that?
Did everybody sign that?
That's right, yeah. 25 years I probably won't be around. Well, 23, I've had them for 2.
That's right, you won't get it.
That's right.
What? Yes. Oh, did you want a copy? Well, he just emailed me. I couldn't find it on.
I can get another one if you want. Sure. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Larry, I got one from my copy.
You don't care about you, Larry.
I do care about you, Gary.
She cares about people.
She did all the work, so. She don't even know assessment. Thank you.
Sure does.
Did I say that loud?
What's that?
Did I say thank you loud?
Perfect.
Okay, you guys had a chance to review that? Larry, have you seen this?
Yeah, just,
You're more used to this language than we are, so,
yeah.
all right. Here's what I'd like to do. I'm gonna indicate how I think this should be decided. I've got your arguments. I don't need it to be restated. Your record is developed, everything's in it, for legal purposes. I don't think you need to restate what's the obvious. This is, but I do need some clarifications. The assessor sent, on May 27th, Bruce sent it back, his responses with objections to, 32 separate requests for information. And that's 16 to 23 in the submission by Larry on 8/13/21. You see that? Everyone got that? How much of these are we fighting over? Are you still seeking all that information?
The gross sales,
No, no, no. 1 through 32. Are you still seeking 1 through 32?
I'm seeking 2 gross sales and leases.
So the only thing we're fighting over are gross sales and leases. Bruce, do you agree with that?
I believe so. I would say that there aren't going to be any leases.
Well, no.
just simply-
Bruce, I want to focus what we're fighting over. Right, so we don't have to make a decision on whether you get 1 through 32. The only thing you want are gross sales for this store and others, and leases for this store and others. All right, well then, I'm glad you clarified that, because I was ready to zing you. My opinion, the only thing at issue is this store, period. You've asked for Walmart's leases for everything. Why? What difference does it make? You're evaluating this property, what difference, and he makes a point, there are 5,600, and you got a copier? And I don't think the city wants to pay him, pay for all the copies that would generate. So my opinion is, I'm gonna say that, they only get information if we order it on this store. Second of all, gross sales. He makes a point in his October 15th. Are we evaluating the property or the What are you after here, Larry?
The property.
All right, so to value with the property, do you need gross sales?
Well, you look at gross sales, that's gonna give you an indication of whether or not the property has a good location for that use.
Okay, so, and what does the lease give you?
The lease is gonna give you square footage price per lease per square.
Is that
foot.
normally requested of all commercial businesses?
That's, when they're in appeal, yes, you have to have that information. It's the income approach to value,
Did you get lease information on the Mill Mall?
yes,
And did you get lease information on the mall that we just, which is under,
Main Coast,
you got all that stuff?
yeah,
They all provided it?
yeah.
So it's in the normal course of business, that stuff comes in?
Yeah, and with the Main Coast Mall, there's some that have a percentage lease,
Okay?
which you get a base rent,
Mhm.
and then depending upon the gross sales, there's a percentage of that after it reaches a certain.
Bruce, why doesn't Walmart want to give a copy of their lease to the city?
Chairman, there is no lease. This property is owner occupied by Walmart.
So there's nothing to give?
Correct.
Did you know that, Larry?
Yes.
So how can we give her a lease that doesn't exist?
Not for this particular Walmart, but Walmart, well,
Listen,
They
why do you
lease-
need other Walmart leases?
Walmart leases 600 properties, and with reading the actual leases, I can determine how those leases are formatted, what the rents are per square foot, and study those leases and compare them to this property.
Yeah, but this isn't lease, this is owned by Walmart.
It doesn't matter if, those are.
I don't see why you need this lease if there's no lease. I don't see why you need a lease from Bangor, Brewer, Connecticut, Rhode Island, wherever. Why would you need those?
Well, let me tell you this right now, if I don't get this information, if you declare that it's, you don't want to allow this information, then I will be appealing.
I don't care. Listen, it's your right.
I know.
But tell me why you need lease information from stores other than
I just
Ellsworth.
told you, there's over 600 stores that Walmart leases. What they'll do is they'll sell and lease back, and that lease structure, that base rent, perhaps percentage rent.
Yeah, but if you're valuing a property in Ellsworth and it does X amount of revenue, I mean, we'll get into that, gross sales. I can see your point there, sort of. You go down to Hartford with a superstore that does 6 times the business because it's a huge, that's apples and oranges.
Well,
They're all individual.
Well, you would have to look at the demographics of the areas and compare apples to apples.
So how many of these leases do you want of the 5,600 in stores?
There's 600 stores that Walmart leases.
You want 600 leases?
Yeah, what an assessor does is appraise a universe of properties.
I get that.
And so the information I gather, like all the information I have here for just Ellsworth, it's not a difficult task.
Bruce,
to go through.
how long would it take Walmart to produce 600 leases? And what would the copy cost? Just the copy cost for your office be?
Well, let's think about it. If you have 600 leases, I don't know how many pages they would be, 100 pages. That's probably 60,000 pages altogether. You're looking at time per copy charge. I'm not even sure what that is, 25 cents, 50 cents. So this is a task that would take weeks. You're probably looking at least $20,000 or $30,000 in charges.
Every one of these leases would be digitized, you could just put them in a file and send them.
And
You don't have to print them
we
out.
want our assessor to look over 60,000 pages of leases so that you can put a value on Walmart. Why wouldn't you spend your time on something
Yeah.
different?
I'm the
Exactly.
only Walmart in the entire state that hasn't settled with Walmart. All the others have settled between 2% and 12%. they ask for 50% off for every place they go. And I don't believe in just settling just to be settling. I want to know, I want them to prove their value.
Yeah, but if you're valuing the real estate, right? Don't you have a set, one of the 4 formulas is gonna give you a number?
The income,
Right,
sales,
right.
or cost. Well, certainly the cost is the most reliable when you don't have very similar sales. But the income approach looks at those leases, what the square footage is. It looks at that gross rent,
Gross.
those gross sales.
How many leases are there in Maine?
I don't know, 10, 15, maybe, I'm not sure. And so, Chairman, there are other issues that might be associated with that. For one thing, if leases are 20 years old, how pertinent is that to establishing a value today? If you have a lease from 20 years ago, for example. Also, too, if you have a lease of just ground, is that truly relevant? We're attempting to establish a value for land and building. That's what the assessment is. It contains both of those pieces. So if, for example, a lease is just of ground because Walmart owns their building or built the building on the ground that they may be renting, that ground lease may not have much bearing on what the market value of the subject property is.
It would give an indication of, you capitalize pad site rents into an indication of land value.
Anybody else have any questions on this issue?
May I just say one?
I think it's an overbroad question, request. It's asking for discovery from an individual on their property. I think it's fair game. But when you ask a company like Walmart to produce all their leases for 600 stores, why are we paying him to look at 600 leases? You know, if you're a taxpayer, you'd say, what the hell's this? But, and then you have to look at what it would take for a company to produce that. Because he's raised the issue of unduly burdensome. And I think that this is a fishing expedition. That's my opinion on this one. So, you know, weigh in, ask your questions, and let's get a vote on leases.
One of my questions is they don't lease to Dunkin' Donuts in Ellsworth?
Are you seeking?
He has provided that information,
Okay.
yeah.
So the cash flow, you know the cash flow, right? From,
The tenants that are up front, hair, nails, places, Dunkin' Donuts.
So, I mean, those leases should give you, I mean, just like the mall, those leases should give you an idea of a value per square foot of what they're leasing.
Of those small tenant spaces.
Yeah.
And if you can
Those
remember.
are like tags,
Huh?
those are like tag stores or whatever, right?
Yeah, and as you can remember, Aroma Joe's, the smallest one in the Maine Coast Mall, was $54 a square foot. So you wouldn't be able to use those small leases to
He doesn't have that information, how is he gonna find out what the revenue of the store is?
that's a separate issue. We're talking leases for, and this one doesn't have a lease. He's asking for the leases for all 600 Walmart stores, which, and then, so that's why I asked how many in Maine, 10. You know, you can always, if you think that this is a relevant request, limit it to Maine. But if you ask for 600 leases, I think that's just unduly burdensome on a taxpayer to have to do that.
How would you do an appraisal on revenue without some comparison of what Walmart pays per dollar of volume in leases? Isn't that what you're asking basically, Larry?
Yeah, I just want to know what they pay.
How would you evaluate a building on a revenue basis without that?
Without
Without some lease information?
it would be the income approach using the rent information, and subtract expenses, and,
You need the rent information.
yeah.
That's what they won't give you. I agree with the chair that 600 leases may be a little broad, but it seems reasonable that they could supply leases for stores in this area.
Maine or
Maine.
New England.
Well,
Even in eastern Maine.
Steve, you got a thought?
I would think all of Maine would be reasonable.
Bruce, what do
I was
you?
thinking similar, just gonna ask Larry, how much would that crimp your style if it was just Maine?
It wouldn't give a true indication. You know, but why would you wanna hide that information? If it's, you know, you're renting your properties out, well, you sell and lease back. There's like 600 of those across the United States. And for someone to study that, there certainly has been no assessor in the state of Maine that has studied that because they've all settled. But I will study that information and analyze it and use it for assessing purposes.
When you say it's a simple matter of having to print all the leases, do you think that they have all the leases somewhere in a database?
Oh, yeah, they would have it digitized. They know every item you purchase by the minute.
You don't need to review the whole lease, all you really need to.
Well, the whole lease would be something I'd be looking at.
Entire lease?
Hmm,
You look at the entire lease?
yeah,
For the other stores, because there's no lease here.
yes, for those 600 stores that Walmart leases.
I have been, if there's something I might add, I've been doing property tax work since 1983 in the Northeast and New England and other parts of the United States. I have never had any assessor make such a request as this, outrageous. Any court of law, any state tax board would shoot it down as being overly broad, not relevant, has nothing to do with the value of the subject property. What relevance does a lease, you want 600 stores throughout the United States, what relevance does a rent in California have for the subject property? For that matter, what relevance does a lease of a store in the state of Vermont have for the subject property? Or Massachusetts? None. You're talking different demographics, different areas, and you're also talking about when these leases begin. So if these leases, like I said earlier, are 20, 30 years old, Walmart hasn't built a new store in Maine, I believe, in years that they lease. So again, how relevant is that going to be? It has no relevance. It just creates a so-called undue burden upon us. Chairman used the right words. Fishing expedition, that's what this is. It's a classic case of that.
Well, each lease has built into it a clause that says when that lease term is up, they can extend, and you agree to what the rents will be as a percentage in that original lease. So it's not just if you rented 20 years ago, well, that's the rent for this property. You look at any escalation clauses that there may be in the lease.
All right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put this to kind of a vote. Who thinks that Walmart should have to give up leases, lease information, knowing that there's no lease here in Ellsworth, but give other information on other properties? Who thinks that should be given?
I would go with giving for Maine.
No, I just wanna know, should we give
Concept of
lease
leases.
information? And then
Yes,
and if we get enough people that say yes, then I'm gonna ask, how much of that should go?
I say yes.
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 All right, so you're gonna have 3 votes to give up lease information. And I'm gonna put this in terms of a vote here in a minute. How much lease information does Walmart have to give?
State of Maine.
Bruce?
At least the state of Maine, perhaps New England.
I think like 100-mile radius.
State of Maine.
Steve?
Well, yeah, I mean, that'd be the simplest. I mean, you could go try to analyze every geographic area in the country to see what's similar to Ellsworth, Maine, but that's impractical, so probably the state of Maine, New England.
All right, I'm gonna put this to a vote.
Can I?
Go ahead, Bruce.
This is hard for me. So, you need, the statute doesn't talk about unduly burdensome, it doesn't talk about the things that we do in discovery and the civil rules. It talks about a proper inquiry. So the question is whether you think the assessor's inquiry regarding leases is proper to the determination of the value of this building, even though it's not a leased property.
All right, I'll put it in terms of that.
So-
I'm gonna
so-
put to a vote,
So-
who think?
Wait,
So-
let Ed finish.
I'm ready to go.
Perhaps
I know you are.
Perhaps you could ask Mr. Stavitsky to be more certain about the number of leased properties there are in Maine, because if he's wrong and there's just 1 or 2, then I think your net isn't gonna be very big, very full.
Well, if we had ordered 10, whether it's in Maine or not, if you set the number at 10 leases for Larry to study.
Then you can cherry pick them.
I don't know. The only thing about, the other thing about your analysis is, I don't think it's for you as taxpayers to be concerned about how much time Larry's gonna spend analyzing this. That's for the bosses here at City Hall to decide whether they want him spending his time doing that.
All right, I'm gonna put this to a vote. Who thinks that leases is appropriate inquiry for the city to make of Walmart?
I do.
All right.
And I don't.
Based on.
4 to 1,
his
it passes.
opinion.
Now,
We got a legal opinion from our city attorney, but he feels that it's.
all right, well, that's, all
No, that opinion was as to the gross sales,
right, listen, let's move on. We've just,
not leases.
I made a motion, should leases go, and it's 4 to 1. I don't think that they deserve
true?
that information, but that's
What
okay.
he just said that,
I don't know, I'd have to look, but.
So the motion carries, they get lease information. Now, the geographical limit or the number of leases Walmart has to turn over. And I'm gonna make a motion, how many do you think they should get, 10 or more, or just Maine?
well, I think that's beyond, if Larry says that he can review them, but like Ed said, it's up to the city to make that decision.
Also, too, there would only be a couple in Maine if we limited it there, and so you wouldn't, like Ed said, have a good pool really to look at. And that's what Larry's kind of looking at. He wants to get a good pool to look at to make a fair analysis, so.
Well, we're gonna have a way to, all right. Go ahead, Steve, how would you frame this question?
Well, I agree with Bruce. I don't know, we should set a number, and if there's not enough in Maine, give them the whole of New England, or just give them a whole of New England and be done with it.
Leave that up to these 2 guys to negotiate, I guess.
You wanna leave it open to them to negotiate? And if they can't decide, come back in December on the number.
Yeah, so we agreed that we want to see the leases,
Right.
so let them negotiate how far they want to go and see if they can come up with a.
All right, so I want to make a motion that we allow the parties to negotiate the number of leases, and if they can't decide on their own, we'll decide it next board meeting. But, Bruce, so do I have a second for that?
Yes, second.
All right, all in favor? All opposed? All right, so lease information is decided, we have our votes, we have our record, and we're gonna have Bruce and Larry meet and see if they can solve that problem, okay, Bruce?
Right, Yes, that's fine, Chairman. I just have one thing I want to say. The assessor did say earlier that he wants Walmart to prove their value, or its value. We've proven our value in the sense that we've had the property appraised, and we gave the appraisal to the assessor. He may not accept it, he may not want to, agree to that number, but we've proven our value to this point.
I agree.
Given him our appraisal.
Bruce, that's when, once these discovery issues are resolved, you're gonna get your chance to convince us what the just value is, okay? So the next question we go on to is gross income. Is that what you're after, gross income?
Gross income.
What else, what have you gotten from Bruce on this property?
The only two things I need is the gross income and the leases.
So we've done the leases,
What have you got?
but gross income, you say they're entitled to it. The city's entitled to it.
I say that if it's a proper inquiry, the city's entitled to it. What I'm hearing is that Walmart's counsel is saying that you don't measure the value of the real estate on the basis of the number of goods that the store is selling. You don't value a lot that McDonald's is on by the number of hamburgers that it happens to be selling. You base it on what people will pay for the lot. So the burden, to the extent that there is a burden here to prove that the inquiry is proper, is what the statute says, I think it's Larry's burden to tell you why knowing gross store sales is important to him in figuring the value of the property. And then you can hear from Mr. Stavitsky as to why it's not.
Larry,
Well,
why is this necessary?
there's two good reasons. The first, of course, would be Walmart's appraisal is predicated on a dark store theory, where they say that the value of the property is based on them
Empty.
already gone.
Empty, right? Like, was that the argument that Home Depot made?
No, I don't remember. That was-
Home Depot came in and said, appraise us as if empty.
That was 2014.
Right, I know, but isn't that the argument that was made,
I
right?
believe they did, they tried. But we can't do that. We can't assess based on the store being vacant and it selling to a second generation occupant. So the gross sales would have a trend. If that trend is coming down, you would think Walmart might be thinking of leaving the property. If it's going up, why would they leave? Why would they vacate the store? So that's one reason. And the second is, leases are based on, the property value can be looked at. The property with the highest rents usually has the better location for selling the goods. So a percentage of sales of the goods would have a direct relationship to the base rent, which would be in the lease.
Good.
So there'd be that relationship there. You'd be able to coordinate and see with the gross sale information.
Bruce, do you have a comment that you want to say why we should approve this?
Yes, there are several reasons why. First of all, I want to say that we have the property appraised. Our report, and I have it in front of me, is not a dark store appraisal. The assessor may not agree with our comparable sales, but we used all three approaches to value. So that so-called dark store theory, which is not Walmart's theory, it's the theory of assessors, is just as to a sales comparison approach. We considered all three approaches to value. So we looked at comparable rents, not all around the United States, but in Brunswick, Maine, Falmouth, Maine, Auburn, Topsham, Bangor, and South Portland. Those are leases we looked at of other stores, retail stores. We also looked at a cost approach, what it would cost to replace this building, less physical depreciation, less any obsolescence, plus the underlying land value. So I take exception to what the assessor is claiming. It's not true. It's not a true dark store appraisal.
How long would
Not at
it take you to get the gross sales to him?
And in regard to the issue about gross sales, there is nothing in Maine law, no statute, no authority that says you must provide gross sales in terms of appraising a property. Nothing. The opinion that was provided from the attorney for the city really constitutes this article by two authors, and it's their opinion, that's what it is, their opinion, that gross sales may have some relevance in appraising the value of property. There is no statutory authority. In fact, the article talks about how gross sales would be relevant for appraising different property types, such as, for example, hotels where you provide services, such as car washes where you're providing services. So those are businesses that sell services, not goods. Walmart doesn't sell services, it sells goods. So there's nothing even in the city's own submission that would suggest that you have to provide gross sales because it's relevant in appraising or valuing Walmart's building or what they do in their building. So for those reasons, the gross sales have nothing to do with the valuation of the subject property. As was said before, are you going to value the McDonald's based on how many hamburgers they sell? Because that's basically what the assessor is asking you to do. He's saying, tell Walmart to provide its gross sales for this store so that he, the assessor, can judge, in his opinion, how well they're doing or not, and then, based on his opinion, the value of the store should be whatever he decides it ought to be. And that's not the way you value the property, the real property. You just don't do it that way. You value it based on the three approaches to value, which would be market sales, rental income, and a cost approach. Gross sales are not any indicator of value. Further, this board had said, well, maybe you should look at Walmart leases in other states in the area, New England, for example. Well, if that's the case, then we should look at case law nearby. Massachusetts, and this was in the submission that I provided to the board back in October, and what you have there in front of you, I think it's on page 3, bottom of page 2. Further case law evidence can be seen from nearby jurisdictions, such as Massachusetts, where the court has held that property should not be valued on the basis of the profitability of the business operations conducted on the premises. And then further in Massachusetts, that's a 1947 case, and I researched it. It's good law. And then further, real estate may be valued on the basis of rental income, but is not valued on the basis of the profitability of business operations within the premises. So that's how Massachusetts looks at it. I did research Maine case law to determine whether or not Maine has addressed the issue. I could not discover anything on that. So the profitability, if any, that Walmart might have going on in this building, the subject property, has nothing to do with the value of the real estate itself.
Can I ask a question? I just looked up Walmart gross sales. It tells me that in last year, or this year, they're projecting 559 billion. And then last year they had 519 billion. And is this just a number that some place in a corporate handout that you give to potential stock buyers that anyone can get online? It just strikes me that this is a number. I mean, you go online, you can see what overall Walmart makes, and I'm sure they have a breakdown store by store someplace. I mean, are we really fighting over a number that is super secret? Or is this just, you don't wanna give it because you don't wanna know what the gross sales are?
No, it's confidential proprietary business income. Walmart has competition.
I agree with
Walmart
that.
is not into
However,
itself.
the request they made, if we suggest that gross income should be given, like the city attorney is suggesting, we can make it confidential so nobody else sees it except the assessor. Would you agree with that? You've seen the statute, both of you cited me to it, I read it, it talked about confidential, keeping confidential. I can see why Walmart wouldn't want its competitors to see what Ellsworth is selling, I definitely see that, around here. But if we ordered it, and we kept it confidential, would you produce it much more easily?
Did we do that once?
Yeah, statute says we can keep it confidential, and Larry's got it, we can't, and it cannot be seen by anybody but him.
It's a crime.
And then if he gives it out to anybody, it's crime. The statute says it specifically, so, that's where I'm going here. I thank, Bruce, I'm ready to make a decision on this. Anybody else have any questions? All right, I'm gonna make a motion that we ask Walmart, under the idea that this is proprietary information, to provide the city with their gross income for Ellsworth store only, and that it be kept confidential. Larry won't disclose it, can't be boom, and to the extent that we have to discuss it here and he uses it, we may have to make some adjustments to our presentation in the public, but that number cannot be used. So I'm gonna make, I make the proposal that that's how our findings go tonight. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Discussion, go ahead.
Didn't we request that once already? That they would talk confidentially and get the sales information?
Nah, it's gotta be ordered, they don't wanna give it. It
And
has
they
to be in
chose
order.
not to.
Yeah, it has to be in order from the board, and because, here's the way it works. If we give an order from this board saying they gotta produce it and they don't, their appeal can be
Appeal's
dismissed.
over.
So we didn't make it as a motion
Right.
last time.
We asked them to work it out, they couldn't. So that's what my motion is.
Larry, did you get sales information from the other properties, the mall, Main Coast Mall,
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
and from Walgreens?
Yeah,
Yeah, we saw some of that in their sales, I remember that in the,
I mean, if you don't know what the sales are, how are you gonna value the property? I don't know.
There's a motion on the floor. Oh.
well, we can have
Discussion,
discussion. I'm encouraging discussion, I want your opinions.
Try to get home.
No, don't worry about that. He's taking us out to the restaurant, sit down, open.
Well, you're ready to get taken up.
There's no place to go.
No, I guess that's, I've, that's all I've got.
All right, so the motion is, I move that we ask Walmart to provide the city their gross sales on the proprietary, and that it be sealed, and do I have a second?
I second it.
And then,
Motion.
all in favor? All opposed, nobody, 6-0. So, there you have it. Can I ask the city attorney to write up what we did tonight with the appropriate and submit it, so that we know?
Yep.
And we ordered leases for, it was 5-1, I stand alone. And then they're gonna try to work out how many leases. And then the second issue is, gross sales is to be provided for city Ellsworth only. And that will be proprietary.
Is there a number of years with that? Not to extend our discussion, but.
Well, it's recent, right? Have you asked for years?
I would like to, at least 3, preferably 5 years.
Bruce, would it take you a lot longer to produce 3 or 5?
No.
It's in the database.
All right, let's modify this then. I make a motion that Larry gets 5 years.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Now, Steve, do you wanna vote?
What was it?
In 5 years.
5 years worth
Oh,
of gross.
Sales data.
All right, so, if the city attorney could write up
Sure.
the appropriate thing, submit it to me, and I'm gonna sign it, and, I'm gonna make a motion also that we adjourn, we convene here in a month. And if you guys have not worked it out, we'll make a decision for you on the lease issue. If you need more time, Bruce, just ask us. It's not a problem. It's the holidays. I can't imagine that finding all this information is gonna be a quick job. So, we have all the time. Your original appeal has been stayed, so we sort out all these little issues, so that when we do have a full hearing, all your you see what I'm saying? So if you need time, and it's the holidays, please, either side. So, I'm gonna motion we adjourn. All in favor? We're out of here.